for Kenya. And I am so happy to have all of you join us. So with us, we have a great list of panelists. We have Professor Dr. Nini, who's joining us from Myanmar. She's a hydroinformatics engineer and expert. So we are really happy to have her here. She will be sharing more about herself in a bit. We also have Priscilla Adhiambo, who is an urban and regional planner here in Kenya. She's very passionate about things sustainability and water. Then we have one of our good consultants, management consultants, who's very big on sustainability. That's Damaris Ndira. She will also give an introduction of herself as we go along. We are so happy to have her on board. We also have Joylene Omari, who's a water engineer, actually. She's currently working in the water space in Kenya and across Africa. She works with Davis and Shatliff, and she'll be one of our moderators as well. So I am excited to have this meeting get started, and I will now hand over to the panelists to just give a brief introduction, maybe a 2-minute introduction, and then we can start off with the presentations. Over to you, Nini, you can start.
Thank you very much, Florence. I'm very happy and honored to join this panel, and I'm very grateful that you are thinking very important subject called water conservation and a path to our sustainable future. Let me please share the screen, and then I will introduce myself shortly. Yeah. Do you see my screen, shared screen? So my name is Kenny Niteng. I'm the G100 Eco-Civilization Wing Myanmar Chair, and also founder and chair of Myanmar Water Academy. I studied in the Netherlands, and I got my PhD in hydroinformatics in 1994. So I'm an old lady, but still working for my passion. Today, I will be talking about water conservation and its various dimensions, because I have been a water professional for the last 44 years, and from the very small, tiny teacher to become a professor, and also in the United Nations, I was senior advisor to the Dams and Development Project, working at the UNEP Nairobi Kikiri compound. Later on, I moved to Paris and being a section head for sustainable water management. After that, I also keep on working with various positions. Therefore, water is in my blood, and also people said that I breathe in and out, not air, but the water. So yes, it is. I'm very much attached to water, and I'm also very concerned with the water conservation. So when Florence came up with this idea, I was liking, I was like, okay, what a wonderful opportunity to talk about the various dimensions of the water conservation. So the first opening messages I wrote down here: humans are a primary cause of climate change. It's time to redirect our major focus to how we react to this problem, or how we'll deal with the problem. The second message is a positive link between water and climate change is the water conservation. It is, of course, a path to a sustainable future. And again, we can relate it to our rivers, the importance of rivers. a civilization can be collapsed if we ain't act enough in protecting the river ecology. So these are my opening messages. And I also would like to emphasize on the importance of water. Water is life. Water is life-giving liquid. We all know that we have ice and vapor and in other forms. However, today we will talk about the liquid form. It is life-giving liquid. Water is one of the world's most precious resources. But as the planet's climate changes, the population rises, up to 5.7 million people could be living in areas where water is scarce for at least 1 month a year by 2050. So we are telling it very modestly. In some area, people can die from drought and flood and all other water-related disasters. Humans need water and natural environment to survive. Both humans and natural environment need water to survive. And not just fresh water for drinking. We rely on different kinds of water for a huge range of services and products, from sanitation and healthcare through to growing food crops, making clothes, infrastructures. In our daily lives, we use water for taking showers and washing laundry, and it is also a key ingredient in a wide variety of the products that we buy. But even though 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, less than 1% is fresh water that is suitable for human consumption. Today, around 1 in 3 people live without safe drinking water, and global water demand is expected to increase by more than 50% by 2040. So these are all UN data. In Myanmar language, we said water is important for sa wo ne ye, meaning for food, for clothing, and for shelter. So why we are doing water conservation? We have 7 reasons. 1 is environmental sustainability, ecosystem health and aquatic habitat. 2 is resource scarcity. It is a finite resource. We all have mistaken water is plenty, it comes out of the sky, and it's a God-given gift. But water is limited. Water is finite. Limited freshwater resources and increasing demand. And we have more population, not only more population, but also more greed. We want 1 car from 2 cars, 1 house from 2 houses, and etc., etc. 3 is economic benefits. To do the water conservation, we can have economic benefits in agriculture and industry. Number 4 is energy efficiency. Energy production can be also from water, the hydropower, and also transportation. Number 5 is climate change mitigation. Actually, water is the medium where climate change impact shows up. Reducing carbon footprint and resilience is in that number 5 point. Number 6 is public health. Safe drinking water is at the forefront, and wastewater management is also very, very important, because we have plenty of water by flood and no water by drought, and very polluted water. It's look like poison water because wastewater are through into the natural water bodies. Number 7 is social equity. Access for all, the drinking water, sanitation, and all other financial means and access to water for even industry is access for all is very important point. And also we have to leave these fresh water for our future generations by intergenerational principle. So water conservation is vital for the sustainability of our planet, the well-being of all living organisms, and the prosperity of human societies. It is a collective responsibility to use water wisely and implement strategies for efficient water management to address the challenges of water scarcity and environmental degradation. So the first portion, I would go for 10 dimensions to consider when we do the water conservation. Water conservation is a multi-dimensional concept that involves various aspects of environmental, social, economic, and technological considerations. We can unfold 10 dimensions of water conservation under such 4 aspects. Okay, so environmental dimension, social dimension, economic dimension, technological dimension, policy and governance dimension, culture and behavioral dimension, educational dimension, climate resilience dimension, health and sanitation dimension, equity and social justice dimension. In the culture and behavioral, we also can elaborate more to religious dimension. These dimensions are interconnected, and a comprehensive approach to water conservation should address them holistically. Successful water conservation strategies often require collaboration across disciplines and sectors to create sustainable and inclusive solutions. If we understand these 4 aspects and 10 dimensions, we can start digging into the technology. The technological means, we have 12, of course there are thousands and thousands of means, but when we put all together in the category, we can make 12 categories. That is efficient irrigation practices like drip irrigation or mulching or many more. So you see, under number 1, we can list hundreds of irrigation water efficient techniques. For the sake of the time, I just do 2 most important bar each methodology or each technique. Residential water conservation, we can think of low flow fixtures, like the tap should not be turned fully, even turn it full force, it should come with a certain amount of flow discharge per second. And also rainwater harvesting. When we say rainwater harvesting, it comes from the household to the village, to the hospital, to the supermarket, to the city, and to the country. And also river basin from source to sea. So many, many things we can elaborate under this. And number 3 is industrial and commercial practices. For example, water recycling and reuse and process optimization. Number 4 is water agricultural water management. Sorry, one more water. Agricultural water management, it means precision agriculture, crop selection. So we here have to think of water footprint. For example, in Kenya, we think that we are growing flowers. And then when you really put the flowers on the balance, you say, okay, 1 ton of tulips and 1 ton of lily. But it is wrong. If you think of the water footprint, your 1 ton of tulips may become many tons of water plus 1 ton of flower. You see, so these things we have to consider, calculate, account for, and then we decide how to use the water very efficiently. Number 5 is smart technologies, smart irrigation systems, and leak detection system. For example, water supply. The water supply, we have pipes, and we go to the town with the water from the reservoir to the town. But when we reach to the household, the loss is like 65%. So these things we can do more efficiently. And in some cases of the project, we were able to do up to 11-12% of minimal leakage. So that is called non-revenue water saving. So water conservation has many facets. Number 6 is educational campaigns, public awareness campaign, and school programs we can do. And 7 is policy and regulation, water pricing, laws and regulations. Number 8 is ecosystem restoration, riparian buffer zones, and wetland conservation, and many more. So also source to sea is included. And green infrastructures, and 10 is efficient appliances, energy star appliances or rain sensor for irrigation. And community engagement. This is the far more important thing. For example, we have the artesian wells. Artesian well means these are groundwater shooting to the sky by itself. You don't need the pump or you don't need any machinery. It just go off. However, for water conservation, we have to keep the well. And if we don't keep the well, it goes out forever, meaning we are depleting the groundwater. So community engagement is extremely important. And innovative technologies. Of course, we have many innovative technologies in the water sector, and we can use whatever is appropriate for our country or one of the villages or something. You see, the users suitable advanced technology. So these techniques can be combined and adapted based on the specific needs and characteristics of different regions and sectors. Implementing a combination of these strategies can contribute significantly to sustainability. So my key messages to conclude this presentation: climate change is all about water. 90% show up in water. Saving water and tackling climate change is the positive way. Driving sustainability. 10 dimensions are interconnected, and a comprehensive approach to water conservation should address them holistically. Successful water conservation strategies often require collaboration across disciplines and sectors to create sustainable and inclusive solutions. Water conservation can mean a lot. Easy to start with individuals. When all individuals come serious about water conservation, policy change in every country is possible. Citizens can use as a criterion when casting their vote. We shall only vote the candidate who conserve water wherever they live. A path to sustainability for each individual is through understanding and doing the right thing. So this is the background that I would be using to discuss in the panel discussion. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Dini. That was quite insightful. I will now hand over the presentation to Damaris. Damaris, welcome. You can introduce yourself and share your presentation as well.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Damaris.
Welcome.
My name is Damaris Ndira, and I am truly humbled to be part of this panel this morning. And I will go straight into my presentation because of time. And I hope that we are going to be able to interact more about this later after we have done this presentation. So, water conservation. Florence, please tell me if my screen is very clear to everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
okay.
So the theme for this webinar is water conservation, a path to a sustainable future. And when I got this topic, I sat down and wondered why water conservation and how a path to sustainable future. So I will go straight to introduce myself more for the sake of the participants of this webinar who are interested in understanding who is their speaker. My name is Damaris Ndira. As I have said, I'm the chairperson of Sweden Alumni Network of Kenya, being a beneficiary of a postgraduate diploma in sustainability and corporate leadership. At the same time, I am the founder and director of Go Beyond Limited, which is a global management consultancy and service provision firm in Kenya. And we have curated a platform for sustainability and responsible leadership, which is called Walk and Talk. And it is on that ground that I get the energy and the impetus to come and speak about matters sustainability. Other than that, I would like to say that I have hands-on experience in management in various industries, and that is in pharmaceutical, in SME, in banking, in aviation, and in agribusiness, as well as being a consultant for a number of government and non-government agencies. So as a sustainability practitioner, I feel that this is something that I would want to take part in, especially because in my past experience, there are certain projects that I have been key to drive and which are very critical to sustainability and which then I find very relevant because we realize that water is at the center of everything. So I have managed a number of RED projects. RED to mean reduced emissions, degradation, and deforestation, while working as the brand manager at Kenya Airways, which is the national carrier for Kenya, as well as for many African countries. And in specific, there are certain RED projects within a place called 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Forest, which then is a water catchment area for the better part of the eastern and the coastal areas of Kenya. At the same time, I have done a project on adopting a global response to climate change. And most recently, I was the project lead for Africa Climate Summit for the Lake Basin Region side event, which was the only side event for the Africa Climate Summit for the Lake Basin region. And at that time, we realized that the Lake Victoria Basin, and Lake Victoria being one of the freshwater lakes in Africa, actually just two, and the largest water body in this region that gives us the freshwater lake and is under a lot of attack due to pollution and matters climate change. So am I the right person to talk about water conservation? Being a communication, PR, and marketing strategist, and in the broad sense, being a management consultant for that matter, because I would have assumed that this is a subject that needs to be looked at by water engineers, by Professor Nini Thain, who is at the helm of, a water academy. So why a management consultant? Why Damaris? Because looking at all things on a broad spectrum, water and climate change are inextricably linked. And climate change is an all-inclusive agenda, just like water is life. And if you look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are the goals that the entire world currently is working around, you will realize that water is at the center of everything. Okay? So if you look at poverty, poverty starts with water. No water, no irrigation facilities, no agriculture, no life. Zero hunger. Water is in there, good health, and all of them basically. And the earth is what we all have in common. That is a quote by 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And every drop in the ocean counts. So 17% of water coverage of the earth's surface that we all have in common is covered by water. Okay? And if you look at most of the global disasters that happen across the world, water-related disasters are the highest. Look at the graphs that I'm showing you. Okay? There is flooding, too much of it that is not controllable. Whereas there is also too little of it. 2 billion people across the world do not have access to drinking water. That is as per the SDG report of 2022. 0.5% of people, of water, only 0.5% of water is usable and available as fresh water. And climate change is dangerously affecting that supply, okay? Now, every year, the water level is dropping at 1 centimeter per year for the last 20 years. And on average, 70% of fresh water is used for agriculture. Could you imagine? Which is to say that about 2,000 to 5,000 liters of water is used to produce a person's daily food, one person, according to FAO. Okay, and so there are a lot of threats to water conservation, such as habitat loss, such as climate change, which is at the center of it, pollution, and the rest. But then what is the challenge? Okay, how can we all be influencers of water conservation and become champions? I therefore, in my research, realized that there is just one simple approach which we as communication and PR practitioners would want to encourage here in Africa. Because I realized that in the other parts of the world, especially in Europe, watersheds have been taken very seriously. Campaigns about watersheds have been done to children, to the old, to everybody. But that lacks here in Kenya and across Africa. In fact, I had a conversation with the chairman of Rural and Urban Regional Planning at the University of Nairobi, just about this watershed. And I realized that the aspect of watersheds is not clearly understood. So what is a watershed? A watershed is the path that every drop of water follows as it moves downstream. That is to say that every environmental structure, everybody, everything along the movement of that water, whether it comes by precipitation from the top or from the ground, is part of the watershed. And the world is made of different watersheds. So a watershed begins from the highest part of that landscape as it trickles down, and different watersheds form a larger watershed. Now, within the watershed, we also have water catchment areas. So for us, we are saying that we would want to now promote a campaign on watershed so that people can understand what is a watershed, and people can now work in tandem with nature and allow nature to flow and avoid blocking the paths of water. For example, we have scenarios like right now, what flooding is on the rise in Kenya. People have lost lives, people have lost property. Reasons being that the planning within the urban areas and in any other parts is not done to take care of watersheds and to protect the flow paths of water to avoid obstruction that then leads into the flooding. So I, just like Professor 𝗵𝗵𝗶 has said, there are different technological ways of conserving water. I do not want to go into that. As a communication champion and a sustainability champion, I just want to say that we all need to now support Africa to take one point at a time and address the matter of water. Too much of it or too little of it. And starting with a watershed campaign here, where we are going to look for stakeholders to say that everybody needs to understand the name of their watershed and how they are positioned within the watershed and how they can contribute to it. So we would say, know your watershed and grow a tree. On 13th of November, the entire Kenya took a holiday on a tree planting campaign. And the tree planting campaign was done by everybody. But then, are we going to be able to grow those trees? Have we strategically positioned our trees accordingly within the watersheds, within the catchment areas? Have we looked at the strategic positioning within the landscape and known that after growing, after planting the trees are going to be grown and there's going to be sustainability on it? So we are saying that we would want to bring on board all stakeholders, community, government, NGOs, and corporate businesses to come together and start with, know your watershed, grow a tree. And then our priority is on the fact that Africa needs to just realign itself. Kenya is a leader currently. We recently hosted the Africa Climate Summit. And right now there is COP28 in Dubai coming, and the country is very much on the forefront to make sure that the right people are engaged. We have an app called 𝗤𝗄𝗎𝒻𝒨𝒃 app. Every time you grow a tree, you log it onto that app. And you can take count of what is happening in the other areas, and you can also take count of your the carbon footprint that you are offsetting. And I know that the new term here in terms of water is going to be water footprint. Do we understand our water footprint? Do we understand that the water footprint and the carbon footprint is going hand in hand? That without water, that climate change agenda is not going to be done properly. So with all that, I am saying we all need to join. More people need to be willing to conserve this water. And the blue economy and the green economy needs to be one conversation that is done together in parallel. I'm going to request all of us to go into a case study of Stockholm Environment Institute, where they have used the aspect of watersheds, campaigns, as well as technological advancements that allow them to be able to clearly identify the watersheds and make good use of planning to make sure that watersheds are not tampered with within the habitat. Thank you all so much. And I am looking forward to all of us joining this conversation now and in the future. Over to you, Florence.
Thank you so much, Damaris. That's quite insightful. I mean, I personally did not know that. I always call them pathways. I didn't know they're called watersheds. So we learn something new every day. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Next, we'll have Priscilla, who will also be giving us a background of who she is and a little conversation about the topic today.
Hi, everyone. Let me share my video. Okay. My name is 𝗞𝗵𝗶 𝗧𝗵𝗶. I am an urban and regional planner with also background in technology. So in terms of using GIS, in terms of developing applications, using programming languages. And what I'm going to discuss today is the odyssey of water. Basically, it means how water moves from the source to where we consume it, and then to the treatment, and also to back to the ecosystem. So I'll share my screen. Okay. Yeah. So I hope you can confirm you can see my screen. Okay. So I'll go to the presentation mode. So what you're basically looking at is, it looks like a lot of lines and and figures, but basically these are rivers, and they're rivers, major rivers in Kenya. And then what you see at the center here is Mount Kenya National Park. So this is mostly echoing what previous speakers have talked about. Water sustainability is not just about using water at our homes. It's about protecting the entire ecosystem. So the ecosystem includes a lot of diverse aspects. So the first aspects are the water catchment areas, and then from the catchment areas are the reservoirs. From the reservoirs, there are purification to make the water potable to be used by people at their homes. And then there's the piping system to supply water to the home and every other part. And then after that, it becomes wastewater. And that wastewater is directed to treatment plants. And from treatment plants, it is released back to the rivers. So it goes back to ecosystem. So this is the first one of the catchment areas, Mount Kenya. So a brief about Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is a vital catchment area, and it supplies a network of rivers and contributes significantly to the region's water resources through its pristine glaciers and dense forests. You find that the characteristic of catchment areas is that they have high altitude, and they have forest cover, which basically supports the source of a lot of rivers. So another catchment areas that supplies water to Nairobi is the Aberdare ranges. And the Aberdare ranges play a pivotal regulation to the flow of rivers and sustaining water resources through its diverse ecosystem and high altitude moorlands. So Aberdare ranges includes a variety of mountains, and this is also a source of a number of rivers, as you can see from this. So this green area represents the forest cover that is found within Aberdare ranges. And then these are some of the rivers. You see like how many, there are really a lot of them that come from this area. And then from there, from the catchment areas, which we've mentioned are Mount Kenya and Aberdare ranges, we move to the reservoirs. So the reservoirs are where these waters are collected at a particular place through man-made dams. So there's Thika Dam, there is Ruiru Dam, and then there's Ndakaini Dam. If you come from Nairobi, I suppose most of you have heard about it. So Ndakaini Dam is also known as Thika Dam, and it is located in Murang'a County. And it has a storage capacity of 70 million cubic meters. It was completed in 1994. So another challenge is that you find these infrastructures were set up a long time ago, and then there have been changes that have come up, such as population increase, urbanization, which increased the water demand, but the size of the reservoirs and the water catchment areas are constant. So that's why you find there's a strain in terms of demand and supply. And also, like as my previous speaker has said, you find that the demand also increases daily. And also you find that the gap results to challenges such as water rationing and also just purely absence of water. And then the Ndakaini Dam supplies 84% of Nairobi water. So that's echoing just what my previous speaker have said. If you hear projects that includes planting trees in Ndakaini Dam, run for Ndakaini Dam and all that, you should take part in it, because by preserving these water reservoir areas, you're also helping the future generations. So there's the Ndakaini Dam reservoir, and then there's the 𝗄𝗎𝗄𝗏 Dam. I don't know how many of you have heard of 𝗄𝗎𝗄𝗏 Dam. Yeah, but it's also located in Murang'a County, and it has a capacity of 13.3 million cubic meters, and it was completed in 1990 and contributes approximately 13% of Nairobi's current water supply. So Ndakaini Dam contributes the highest portion of water that supplies to Nairobi, but we also have these other dams that also supplies a given percentage. So from 𝗄𝗎𝗄𝗏 Dam, we also have Ruiru Dam. So Ruiru Dam is located in Kiambu County, Kenya, and it has a storage capacity of 2.9 million cubic meters, and it was completed in 1950 and contributes approximately 4% of Nairobi current water supplies. So you find that these three reservoirs are the ones that support, and then you find that the level of water in these reservoirs are declining, are usually in fluctuates at different periods of the year. You find that during the dry seasons, they have low levels of water, and that's where you find a lot of Nairobians having challenges in accessing water. Yeah, and then so we've started with the catchment areas, and then we've gone to the reservoir, and then the next step that happens is purification. So the water that comes directly from the dams cannot be consumed directly. So they have to go through purification processes to remove the impurities from this. And then we have Ngedu Purification Center, and we also have this purification center. So what they basically do is that water is directed, is channeled to these purification areas, and then they remove impurities and they make the water potable so that they can be consumed by people. Yeah, so and then after purification, that's where water is channeled to the entire of Nairobi. So if you have water connected to your taps, if you have taps in your area, that's what. So there are also other sources of water, such as boreholes and also rainwater, but piped water, this is the journey that it takes from the source, from the catchment areas to the reservoirs, to the purification, and then to supply the entire system. And then you find that the daily demand for Nairobi is estimated to be 750,000 cubic meters, and the supply is about 550,000 cubic meters per day, and that leaves a gap, a huge gap. So if you're asking what is my role in this entire thing, you have two roles. The first role is to protect the catchment areas and the reservoirs, and the second role is to reduce this demand. And this is where you take initiative by reducing your consumption, taking different lifestyle changes, such as using a shower, and also such as instead of reusing water. So that that also brings in the aspect of circular economy. So instead of disposing water when you're done with it, you can find a way of purifying it at your residential if you have that capacity, and reusing it, and also just using water, making sure you optimize the use of water. Yeah, and then the last step after water has come to your area, there's the treatment of wastewater. So water that has been flushed from toilets, water that has been used for washing and drained in the sink, water that has been used in utensils, they go to the treatment plants. And the main treatment plants are Dandora, is the Dandora treatment plant, and then we also have the Ruai treatment plant. So water is directed to these areas, and they undergo a series of cleansing and purification to make it non-hazardous to the ecosystem. I had once gone to the Dandora treatment plant, and there were hippos in the water, and which also showed that the water that is treated is non-harmful to the ecosystem. So the water is released to rivers such as Nairobi River and Mathare River, and the cycle goes on: rainfall, water catchment, to the rivers, to the purification. Yeah, and that's the entire water odyssey. I hope that's clear. And that's my presentation. If you want, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Priscilla Adhiambo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. I mean, wow. Okay. There's a dam you mentioned. I can't even pronounce the name, but it's good to know that we have more than just one dam. I think growing up, we used to always talk about Ndakaini Dam and say that's the only place where water is found and is the source of all our water and electricity. So it's very insightful to know how everything works and how it benefits the ecosystem. That's really great. Now I'm going to move on to the next part of this session, and I will give Joylene an opportunity to just talk about herself. She will be the moderator for the next session. So it's basically a panel discussion. But before that, Joylene will give us a little bit of insight about the water ecosystem. She's an engineer in the water department at Davis and Shatcliffe. She's worked with a few projects in Africa. So Joylene, over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Florence, and thank you to the rest of the speakers. It's been quite insightful. I think we're just doing the first presentations, and I've had so much. Okay, so my name is Joylene Omari. I'm a chemical engineer by profession, but I work as an assistant sales engineer at Davis and Shatcliffe. So I would say that some of the things that I've done so far, apart from just the professional lifestyle, I have been a member of the Younger 2023 delegates and also Ladies in Helmets, among others. So as Davis and Shatcliffe, I think one of the things that we mostly focus on is water and energy, because we realize that about 1 in 10 people have access to 1 in 10 people on earth lack access to safe water. So you'd find that a majority of people are unable to access water, and particularly clean water. So in my department, we mostly deal with export sales. So I would say I have more experience in not only Kenya, but most of East Africa, because we've been able to notice and maybe identify the challenges that most people face within the area. And one of the things that we usually advocate for is storage of water, because even as we sell our products, that is mostly we do a lot of borehole pumps, we do a lot of irrigation items, we also do a lot of water treatment. So some of the things that we mostly focus on is just to encourage our clients and encourage the community at large to basically store water, because we realize that most of the times, even when you are washing your utensils, you would you'd mostly just leave the tap running. So really an aspect of water conservation that you can be able to look at. And when you're washing your clothes, most of the time you end up with gray water. This water, you can easily recycle it by probably using it in your toilets, or probably using it to even clean the bathroom. So these are some of the aspects that we need to look at when you're looking at conserving water. So as your moderator for the day, my main focus is to run the discussion, to at least help the attendees and the panelists get more insight about water conservation and in a more of a sustainable way. Because we, as Kenya, for instance, we're facing a lot of challenges where, for instance, right now, we have floods, there's a lot of water, and we always ask ourselves, where is this water going to? How are we going to use this water in future? Because, for instance, if the El Nino takes up to February, then that means that usually we usually follow rain seasons with drought seasons. So when we have a lot of rain, we have so much water, we don't know where we are going to take this water, and then we complain mostly about it. Then after, when we are having drought, we then again start complaining we don't have water. People are dying out of drought and all that. So these are some of the things that we need to look at, particularly in Africa, in a way that we can be able to create solutions that are more long lasting and solutions that we can implement even in rural areas, because we need to not only educate people within our areas, but we need to also within the urban areas, but we also need to be able to educate people in rural areas on how to go about these issues. So one of the quotes that I usually find quite interesting is by a poet known as W.H. Auden, who says, while thousands have lived without love, not one without water. So that means that we can essentially live without love, but we need water. So we need to figure out ways in which we can conserve this water, ways in which we can um, reduce pollution of water catchment areas, ways in which we can contribute to climate change as a whole. So I'm really happy to be part of this discussion, and I hope we will have a very insightful and interactive session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Jolene, now I think we'll just jump right into the panel session. We'll have our panelists. You can begin with the questions. Just for the rest of the participants, if you have any questions or if you'd like to ask a question, please make use of the chat box. Just ask your questions there. Or you can wait for after the discussion, you can raise your hand and ask a question. So over to you, Jolene. I think I will just let you go with the flow.
Okay, thank you so much, Florence. So before we begin, I think there's one thing that I think we need to mention. So Kenya currently has approximately 53 million people, and only 15 million of Kenyans can access clean and safe water. 22 million of them lack access to improved sanitation. So we need to come up with ways in which we can approach these issues, and ways in which we can ensure that we reduce poor management of water and we reduce contamination of water. So one of the key things that I would like to get an opinion about from our speakers is their views about the current global water challenges, particularly in Africa. I know some of our speakers are not, I think Professor Kin is not in Africa per se, but probably some of the issues while traveling here that you think that we need to address. So I'll give every panelist at least a few minutes, like 3 minutes. So we can start with Dr. Kin.
Oh, yeah, you are talking to me? Yeah,
Yes.
of course, I lived and worked in Kenya from 2002 to 2004. It was about 2.5 years. So, of course, I know the water situation in Kenya. And I also know what you have said earlier, that out of 53 million population, only 15 getting the access. And also there are a lot of agriculture problem because you have contract farming. This contract farming really use a lot of water, and also in the process of farm to fork, the food processing, other things, they also use a lot of water. So when we think of water conservation, we should not only press the individuals and households to conserve the water, but also think of the whole food chain, and also the other things like ecosystem and biodiversity conservation. So I would advocate for the holistic way. Otherwise, you know, human being, and especially the household who are not really having income, they will be pressed more than the rich people. It should not happen. So water conservation is a responsibility of everyone. However, the more you damage the water cycle, the more responsibility you should bear. That will be my first intervention.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Priscilla, maybe you can have your opinion on the same.
Okay, so as an urban planner, what the water supply is going to remain constant unless we have more water coming up from the catchment areas. So the step that would help to supply the increased population and to also meet the demand comes in the circular economy part, and also in addressing climate change. So the part of circular economy is ensuring that little to no water goes to waste. You find that some sectors such as industries, such as agriculture, use a lot of water, consume a lot of water, and the water supply areas are the same that supplies every aspect of the economy. So this could be mitigated by advancing the technologies in terms of using technologies that minimize water consumption, and also to the lifestyle changes. So this would reduce the strain on the existing water supplies. And also in that aspect, it will also enable that it will also promote the equity in water access. So in terms of addressing climate change, you find that there are longer spans of dry seasons due to climate change. So if we ensure that we control this impact of climate, it would also ensure that the water reservoirs do not dry up and people are also able to be supplied. So the constant is that population will always increase, and projections means that it will increase exponentially unless there are mitigation measures to manage the population. But so in that aspect, the baseline that would also ensure that the population will not increase in water shortages and limited access is that we adopt emerging technologies and we take action in minimizing the climate impact. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Priscilla. Maybe you can have another opinion from Damaris.
Thank you so much, Joylene, and to the other speakers that have already given in their input. I would want to impress upon the very critical need for everyone to adopt the right attitude. And this can only be done through communication and publicity. And that is targeted towards making people ambassadors and champions of water. not just water conservation, but water use and responsible management of water. And this is to individuals, this is to children, this is to families, this is to schools, to communities, to everybody. This, if done well, is going to give us almost a 50% cut on the resources that are required for us to mitigate matters climate change. So water is at the center of us achieving the level of climate resilience from a global perspective. And communication and publicity for responsible use and for change in attitude is very key. So by communication, I mean, we must make it visible everywhere about matters on water, simple nuggets about water. When you go to a room, if we are looking for artwork, can there be one about water? It's all about making it sound nice and making it, chunking it down to the level that people feel relatable with it and not very technical and boring, because water is life. But rarely do we talk about it in workplaces unless we are on a conference like this, or unless we are water experts, or unless we are in a very water-specific environment. So it has to be made very key, to the extent that almost every big meeting needs to start with something about water. The same way we sing the national anthem, let's then talk about water, because water is life, and then we proceed with the rest of the things. And the creative artists, we can run the campaign in very creative ways, including doing cartoons about water, making patriotic songs about water, creative artists coming up and memes about water, and then people start feeling that it is a global campaign that everyone is contributing towards. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I think one of the key things that I'm picking out from this is that I think it's important to involve the entire community to discuss about water, to make it something that is more creating more of awareness. And we can definitely, like you have said, Damaris, we can definitely try to include this in our memes, in the videos that we have out there, so that we can have more people involved and more people aware about the issues surrounding water and water conservation at large. I think one of the things, and forgive me, I'll be bringing up a lot about the work that we do. So one of the things that we noticed is that it's very important in most of our CSR projects at Davis and Shatcliffe. We try to ensure that most of our CSR projects are inclusive of the community. So we have to involve the community even as we try to run these projects. You have to ensure that the community is aware we are doing this. How will we be storing this water, so that we can also ensure that it does not go to waste. So another thing that we need to also discuss about is why do we think that it is necessary to focus on conserving water and ensuring that there's sustainability in water issues. So I would appreciate your comments on the same.
Should I have a go?
Yes, you can.
Yes. Yeah, in my presentation, I started off with 7 reasons why we should do the conservation. Okay, let me discuss it here. Why water conservation is of paramount importance. It is not only in Kenya, not only in Africa, Europe, Asia, we name it. It is on Earth, our only home. So number 1 is environmental sustainability. If you do water conservation, you do the environmental sustainability, at least in 10 ways, but I will say 2. One is ecosystem health, and the other is aquatic habitats. We eat fish, and we eat the animals who eat fishes. And our food chain is in the ecosystem, on the land or under the water. So we get the thing to eat, the thing to clothing, and also the shelter. So that is the main reason that we need to do the water conservation. The second is the resource scarcity. Water is not infinite, it is finite. And our panelists already told that even less than 0.05% is the fresh water. So we have limited freshwater resources, and we have increasing demand. It is not only the population increase, but also our lifestyle change, and also the globalization. People try to travel a lot, and so on and so forth. So resource scarcity is another reason why we should do the water conservation in the first place. The third is, of course, economic benefits. We always say, do more with less. And also each and every drop should produce much crop or much product, meaning that we need the more economic benefit with less water, meaning water conservation. And in the main areas like agriculture and industry, of course, the household, municipality, and town water supply, village water supply, we name it. That is why we need the water conservation. And the other one is energy. Actually, nowadays, if a kind of community is really developed or not, we measure it with the access to electricity. Do you have electricity? And that is the measure. And where to get the electricity? Of course, we prefer the renewable energy, and hydropower is one of the renewable energies. Of course, there are many like wind, solar, etc. But because we are talking about the water conservation, that play a role with energy consumption as well as energy production. Where energy consumption, if we save water, we need to pump little bit less from the groundwater. So that is the direct effect, or directly you can feel it from home. And that is why water conservation is very important. And the fifth is climate change mitigation. My fellow panelists said very much emphasize on importance of climate change and the mitigation part of it. That is water conservation. And we can do the reducing carbon footprint, and also we can do the climate change resilience. Then the public health. When I was in Kenya in 2002 to 2004, about 2.5 years, I felt that most of the people lived in Nairobi together with me, very much, high-end markets and so on, as well as the countryside. What I felt is the public health, where the water is scarce, they have the very much waterborne diseases and skin diseases, etc., etc. So safe drinking water and good quality household water, potable water, is very important. And also wastewater management. So wastewater management is very, very important. It plays for the public health. And if you think of public health, it also affects the education of the children, as well as the production. If we don't have the good public health, good standard, then the workers, blue collar or white collar, or even the government ministers, they can't function their day productively or having nice and good mood. So the last one is, of course, social equity. And we need access for all. And we only get water in Nairobi and also Mombasa and the big cities, not in the whole of Kenya. It won't work for the sustainability for the future. So we have to really thrive to get more water conservation spirit across Kenya. And like Damari said, everybody has to talk about it. Of course, we have to. And then we walk along the talk. Our word become our action. So then access for all and future generations, we have to teach the youngsters and also the primary school, pre-primary school, pre-KG, and even the pregnant ladies. Then they start talking, then we can start walking. That is my contribution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we can maybe have comments from Priscilla, then Damaris in that order.
Okay, so I'll just echo the last point from Dr. King. The main reason you should conserve water is to promote equity. And I'll say this from a situation that's currently happening in Kibera area. So previously, a jerrycan of water was going for 5 shillings. And then just one day you wake up and then you find that a jerrycan is going for 10 shillings. So previously, if you had 50 shillings, you would have 10 jerrycans full, and that can sustain you and your family for 3 days. But now, if you have 50 shillings, that's half. You can only fill 5 jerrycans, and that can sustain you for just hardly 2 days. So this is the main reason I would really advocate for water conservation, because it not only affects households in terms of income and in terms of accessibility to water, but it also results to negative impacts, such as spread of diseases such as typhoid, cholera, dysentery, because the water is insufficient for people. So water conservation is really urgent. And my point is, it will be more expensive not conserving water than conserving water. What do I mean? I mean in terms of, if we do not conserve water and we experience shortage, we'll have a lot of cases of water shortage, of water-related diseases, which will result to a lot of money being spent in treatment and medication, a lot of money being spent on getting alternative means of finding water, and this would result to a really bigger catastrophe. So water conservation is not just about saving water for the future generations, but it is also about saving the current generation. And that is why everyone must take part in it and make sure, like Damaris had said, make sure urgent measures are taken by everybody, every stakeholder. If you have to put it in memes, if you have to put it in cartoons, let's do that, because without water conservation, it will risk the current and future generations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Priscilla. Damaris, your views on the same?
Yeah, water conservation is equal to sorting out all the global issues that we have and addressing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in one go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we've gotten very good points from that. I think without water, without conserving water, basically, that means that several families would be struggling. Would probably not be able to ensure that future generations have access to clean water. So we need to be able to find ways in which we can try and improve this. So I think another point that we need to also discuss is how to understand the water footprint. So when when somebody hears about the water footprint, what exactly do we mean by that? I think sometimes we can be so technical to the extent that most people are not able to understand when we talk about these issues. So what exactly would water footprint mean? So for this, I think we can start in the reverse. So we'll start with Damaris as we go to Professor Kin. So Damaris, you can go ahead. So what in your basic understanding, what do we describe as the water footprint?
Yeah. Can you hear me? I'm
Yes,
putting the microphone, so I'm testing. Is it okay?
yes, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, water footprint means for human being and also for the agriculture and so on. So I would go with my daily routine, for example. Can you still hear me? Because I can't really hear myself.
Yeah, we are losing you a bit. I don't know whether it's the connectivity.
Sorry?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, because you see, our connection is so poor and
Okay.
it is flickering, internet connection, flickering. So I'm trying my best to speak out. Water footprint, to get the idea for our daily life, for example. Okay, we wake up. Okay, today we wake up and at the breakfast table, I try to eat bread and 1 cup of coffee and 1 cup of water. In this case, the water footprint for a cup of coffee is much more, 100-fold than 1 cup of water. You know why? To get this coffee in the powder form, to get boiled the water and mix them, and then I have to put sugar and I have to put milk. So the end products called coffee powder, milk, and sugar, they come to my table not only themselves, but from the farm to fork, the coffee plant, we grow it. Before growing it, we plow the land. And starting from there, we use water. So plowing the land, we use water. Growing the coffee tree, we use water. And when the coffee is ready to pick, we pick it and then wash it. And then we dry it and then we make it a powder. Then the packaging, then the whatever container you use, there is water using. And then along the way from Kenya to Europe, for example, it flies with the aeroplane. Then you use the water along the transportation. And then it went to supermarket. And I went to supermarket with my car or bicycle. But along that, we still use water, so on and so forth. So today, this morning, at my breakfast table, I use 1 cup of coffee. However, it is something like 170 liters of water, plus a glass of water. And if you think of a bacon and egg and bread and whatever, you can think of the same thing. So this is called water footprint.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Maybe Damaris, you can have your opinion on the same. What would you describe as a water footprint?
In my opinion, I would
hello,
say
Damaris.
that, yes, you can hear me now? You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Thank you. So in my opinion, water footprint is an indicator that measures the volume of that water we need to produce any good or service. And that is explained in detail by Prof. And it is what enables us to determine the impact that is generated by the activity that we do with that water and obtain objectives. So we can
just a
check.
minute, Damaris. Dr. Kin, I think there's some background noise. You can kindly mute. Yeah, I think you can proceed.
Yeah, so footprint comes in different ways. There's the clean or green footprint, which is what is just held by nature. So from rain to snow and goes into the ecology without it being used, or rather human activity getting into it. But there is also the blue footprint of water, which is stored in the masses of the water bodies, the natural masses of the water bodies, as well as other artificial masses. And then now there's what we do not want, which is the gray footprint, which is the volume that is required to take care of the pollutants that are in the system and need to be washed off by water. So that is now going a little bit deeper into understanding water footprint. But in essence, it is that magnitude amount of water that is required for us to make an action that produces anything, a product or a service. Okay, so if it is to make a cup of coffee, then it starts from when the coffee was grown, to when it is transported, to when it is manufactured, to when it is at your table. By the time you need it, that is the footprint that coffee covers.
Okay. Okay, I think that's quite insightful. I think, and explaining it in terms of coffee makes it a bit more understandable. So Priscilla, maybe your opinion on the same?
I'll basically classify the water footprints mentioned into 3 different categories. There is the green water footprint, the blue water footprint, and the gray water footprint. So the green water footprint is basically associated with crops and other vegetation. So that is why you hear the discouragement of planting eucalyptus trees near water bodies, because they consume a lot of water and the result to drying up of underground water sources. So the green water footprint is the water amount consumed by vegetation and plants. And then where we come in with the cup of coffee and our lifestyle is in the blue water footprint. So this is associated with freshwater withdrawals from ground and surface water, and it is water consumed by us and animals. So if we consume a lot of water, that is categorized under the blue water footprint. And then the last one is the gray water footprint, and this is associated with wastewater. So if industries release this amount of wastewater from their industries, they have to undergo a process to dilute the pollutants in this water to make it safe or acceptable to be released back into the ecosystem. So our role, we take part in choosing the right products. Like, we take part in every aspect of the different types of water footprints. Kin is saying they're not hearing me? Is it just her? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I can hear you. Maybe Florence can confirm on your end. Can you hear Priscilla? Okay, I can hear you, Priscilla. I'm not sure if everyone else can hear you.
Okay. So I guess Ken could just reload. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
was also concluding, and
Mhm.
our role in reducing the water footprint comes in what we buy. If you choose products that are water intensive, you're also increasing your water footprint indirectly. And we have a role in reducing water footprints directly and indirectly, and it all comes down to our choices and our actions in reducing the water footprint. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Priscilla. I can see Damaris' hand is up. So Damaris, you can go ahead.
Yeah, all in all, I think understanding our water footprint is very important, the same way we have been understanding the carbon footprint. And I want to request kindly that you allow me to log off because there's a very urgent matter that has come up and I need to deal with.
Okay, no problem. I think that's okay, Damaris. I think we can just proceed. So that in the interest of time, I think we can just proceed with the next discussions. So Damaris, you're free to log off. So another thing that I think we need to also have quite a good understanding about is how can we calculate and reduce the water footprint. In essence, because we've said that water footprint is basically like the volume of water. So we are looking at it from the perspective that the volume of water that we are using either directly or indirectly. So how can we calculate it? So maybe we can try to minimize this to just 2 minutes each so that we can proceed to the next discussions. So I'll give it up to you, Priscilla.
Okay, so to collect our water footprint, so we first determine which one do you want to calculate, because there's the direct one and the indirect one. So the direct one is easy to calculate because there are water meters, and then you can also keep track of how many times you've used this amount of water. But the indirect water footprint is a bit complex to calculate because you might not know the amount consumed by the industries in getting the product. But the direct one, we can calculate by recording the amount every instance we utilize the water, and then we categorize them in terms of the necessities and the non-necessities, and then in terms of also the amount, high water consumers and the low water consumers. So from that, we are able to know basically how much water we consume as individuals. And the good thing is that we have water meters, so one is able to easily access their water consumption, and also they can be able to calculate it as a household per individual. Thank you.
Yes, I think I agree with you, Priscilla. I think one of the best ways that we usually use to calculate our water consumption is through water meters. So once you have a water meter, you can easily just go. I think like the way we usually have this joke about maybe with our caretakers. Sometimes the caretaker comes and tells you, today you've used this amount of units of water, and maybe you're usually used to using just 2 units or 3 units. So you would think to yourself, how come my water consumption has doubled Yet I'm still, it's just me, there's nobody else. So you'd probably just go and check and find out, okay, and then maybe realize why, whether the caretaker is telling you the truth or not. So I think that is one of a very unique ways that we use to calculate the water consumption. And I think it's quite an important aspect, so that we know how much water are we using and how much water are we, and even when you want to cut down, so that we can control like our consumption of water if we're wasting water maybe in the showers or in the bathrooms. So I think Professor Kin, your opinion on the same on calculating your water footprint? Hello, Professor Kin, can you hear us? I think she's indicated that she has had some poor internet connection issues. So, okay, I'm not sure she can be able to air out her opinion. So I think another thing that we need also to discuss about is in conserving water in our homes every day. I think there are several strategies that we can use to conserve water. And one of the ways that I think we can try to use, for instance, if you use running water, maybe using running water when you're washing your utensils, how can you conserve this water? If how many hours, how many minutes do you spend in your shower? And do you recycle water? Those are just some of the aspects that we need to consider when we are looking at water conservation techniques. So maybe we can just have a brief discussion on the same. What conservation techniques can we suggest so that we can be able to maybe conserve water and maybe recommend to others? I'm not sure whether Professor Kin is able to hear us. Okay, so Priscilla, you can just go ahead.
The technique that I feel will be most effective is creation of awareness and educating people on water conservation methods, especially the children, because you find children are usually very proactive in implementing what they learn at school. In a different context, there was this program in Sweden where children were taught on the importance of trees, and from that, the initiatives taken by the children from different schools resulted to increase in tree cover in that particular area. So if we add more efforts in educating and creating awareness to the populations, especially children, on water conservation methods and all those methods, they will be able to implement this in their homes, and that will result to raising a generation of water conscience water conscience water conscience generation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other aspect is by like taking intentional steps when utilizing water. So we've had a lot of times that using a shower, like low shower, is better than using the bigger showers. So taking intentional efforts in changing how our households work, and in also adopting the water efficient technologies from that. So it just runs down to lifestyle change. If 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people change their attitudes towards water and how they use water, it will result to a ripple effect even in the industries and every other aspects of the economy, because the water footprint all runs down to human activities.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is quite important, especially if we start training children at a young age to start embracing water conservation strategies. Then I think it would be easier for us to maybe be able to store water appropriately and reduce wastefulness. So Dr. Kin is having a problem with hearing us, so she'll log out and then join us. And I think another thing that we needed to discuss also is about the water saving devices. What are the things that we would recommend to save water? And of course, one of the key things is usually we have, of course, tanks. We store water in tanks, and we try to ensure that whatever rainwater we can be able to harvest and collect it. So any other water saving devices that we can use probably? Maybe if you can recommend any, Priscilla.
Is that still for me, Jane?
Yes, yes. As we wait for Dr. 𝗚𝗏, she's having an issue. She said she'll try to log out, then log in. And I think when she joins us since we need to be a bit time conscious, we'll just proceed. Then she can join us and maybe contribute, just give a brief contribution of the other things we've talked about.
Okay, so the water saving devices do not have to be complex. Even the faucets, the taps you use at home, you find that when you're washing utensils, you use a lot of, if water is running a lot, you waste a lot of water. But if it's running little, you still wash your utensils and still save water. So there are dishwashers that are water efficient and also like conserve water. People who use washing machines, and also in industries, there are also equipment that where after you've used this wastewater, they're able to filter through the wastewater and then it is put back to the system. So these are some of the water efficient devices that people could adopt.
Yeah, I think those are quite informative. That's quite informative. So another thing that we also, I think, is very important to discuss is about harvesting rainwater. And I think that's a significant culture that most Kenyans have adopted, I'd say, and probably most Africans have adopted. So when it comes to harvesting water, what techniques should we use to harvest water? What techniques should we use to collect water? And especially right now that we are experiencing floods in several areas, I think as we started discussing this earlier, I mentioned that we usually have periods where there's so much water and there's a lot of floods, and then we reach a period where there is drought. So how can we be able to save this water?
The most traditional method for harvesting water is putting out buckets and tanks outside when it's raining to collect the water. And something interesting I discovered recently was something known as sand dams. So what these sand dams do, you find there are areas such as in Ukambani where there are, when there's high rainfall, it usually floods very much. But then in dry seasons, it is very dry and people have to travel long distances to get water. So what these sand dams do, they are dug and then there is a way they're covered to, so under beneath there is this catchment place, there's this space that can collect water, and then above it's just ground where people can walk and it does not have these hazards for people. So when it rains, water just seeps through the cover and goes to these dams, and then during the dry seasons, these underneath catchment dams are what people use to collect water. So you find that if people used to travel 5 kilometers to get water, these sand dams bring water closer to them. And it is an initiative done by different institutions such as the government and also by Rotaract Club, by Rotary clubs. So it has a lot of impact. And also people should also ensure they have this collector gutters installed in their homes, because you find that a lot of rainwater just goes to run off without making any reasonable use. So I'll just summarize those two. The collection water through gutters, and also the sand dumps that are having a big impact to the community.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good suggestion, because I think we need to figure out ways of which we can collect this water, because there are certain areas where I think water collection has been quite challenging to achieve. And if we are able to collect this water, then we can always use it for future. So I think one of the things that has been a very good way of collecting this water is, of course, dams. And of course, the normal things that we can do in the household. Usually we collect water using basins, we collect water using tanks and all that. So those are quite effective ways of collecting water. So another thing I think that is very important is in trying to figure out how to stop water pollution, because also, in as much as we are trying to conserve water, we are trying to harvest water. It's usually it's very difficult to use most of this water because it's not even clean enough for human consumption. So I think, for instance, I would say one of the ways we try to reduce water pollution is we try to propose wastewater treatment methods for our customers mostly, because if we are able to treat wastewater, then if we're able to treat wastewater, then we can easily recycle this water for other use. Also, another thing is water treatment. I mean, if we are able to treat our water, because most of the water we'd find has significant, maybe quantities of saline material, or it has a lot of bacteria and all that. So what would you think in terms of water pollution, in terms of the consequences of water pollution and how to prevent and reduce water pollution? I think something else we try to do is to educate people more about just you should not dispose of waste on water resources, because either way, for instance, Nairobi water is usually dirty because of a lot of waste that people dispose. So Priscilla, maybe your opinions on the same.
Right. So water treatment, that comes after water has been consumed, but there are two areas where water treatment is involved, from the source and before it is distributed to the households and to human consumptions, it is treated, and then after water has been used, so that's wastewater treatment. And initiatives that could be taken mostly include aspects of using so I'm having a rush of different thoughts, because there is that aspect of chemical treatment, and then there's that aspect of household treatment. And chemical treatment is mostly used when there's a large scale treatment of water, and then there's that household treatment that includes boiling, filtering, and decantation. So chemical treatment, I feel, is effective because what I talked previously about Dandora treatment plant, when after the water has undergone treatment, it is even suitable, it is habitable for hippos to stay inside the water, and when it is released to the water, it does not have any negative impacts. So so the most effective, I would say, is at a personal level, because you cannot really fully trust the water that comes, because when water goes through the pipes, there's leakage, and there's that aspect where water could be exposed to contaminants. So so the main, as for to help, like, to protect oneself, people should just ensure the water they consumed, they're sure it is treated, it is treatment at their households. Yeah,
okay, that's some good points right there. And I think that this basically about water pollution, I think it's more of a personal responsibility. I think that everybody should be able to take it upon themselves to try and ensure that they do not dispose of waste to maybe rivers or to lakes or to even the sea. So it's more of a personal responsibility that we have to ensure that we reduce water pollution and to prevent water pollution. Because I mean, we are the ones who pollute the water. It's not water that pollutes itself. So another thing I think maybe we can discuss about. I cannot see. I think Dr. Kin has not been able to log in again. Florence, have you been able to reach out to her?
Yes, she will not, the network has seriously let her down. So
Okay.
I think she will not be able to join us.
Okay.
Yeah, I would probably, maybe we can take any questions if we have from the members. And then, yeah.
Okay, I think that's fine. So just to close up, I think there are several community projects that we have done for water conservation. I would say most of our projects are mostly tied to solar. So we provide, mostly you would find that we provide solar not really just customers, even to communities when we are doing our CSR projects. And in a way, we not only help in increasing accessibility to water, we are also helping to just ensure that you know, a lot of people spend a lot of time, especially in most marginalized areas. You'd find that people, particularly women and girls, spend a lot of time just collecting water, because probably the area where they can get water is far away from their homes. So just having that access to water is a key way of contributing to just their personal development and contributing to basically life in itself. So I can see that Dr. Kin has joined back. I'm not sure, can you hear us? Okay, so I think one of the things, Priscilla, probably you can mention one project you've done to for water conservation, any project that you've done. I've heard you talk about Dandora. So anything that you have done which you has contributed to water conservation, you can just mention it, highlight it, so that we can proceed to the Q&A session.
Okay, so in field, what she mentioned is in the creation of the SIDPs, the and in that we identify areas that are vulnerable, like environmental sensitive areas, and from that we recommend to stakeholders and the governments on how to protect these areas. SIN has been mostly on the policy basis, on a project that has been done in person. Perhaps if I mention planting trees, we usually do that a lot. Yeah, so that aspect of policy recommendations and that aspect of planting trees to protect catchment areas.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution. So I think I will throw the ball back to Florence. Probably if we have any questions or comments from the rest of the team, and maybe your contributions on the issues that we've been discussing about water conservation, and maybe areas that you probably would like some clarification. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jolene. That was quite an insightful session. I mean, there's so much I've learned. I think I used to think planting trees was me conserving water, but clearly there's still more that I need to do. So maybe at this point, I'll just welcome, if there are anyone who has any question or would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand. Yeah, we can at least see how we can answer as best as possible. Okay, so I'm assuming we've all learned something new. We've been able to be exposed to something that probably we did not know. We've learned how to conserve our water resources. I mean, this is a conversation that if we do not start taking action now, the consequences will continue to affect all of us, because we've seen how water can seriously cause damage. And if we are not intentional about how we manage the water, how we handle the water, then we're likely to face a lot of problems in the future. On behalf of Ecocivilisation and EMC, I'd like to thank each and every participant. I'd like to thank each and every panelist. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you so much, Joylene. That was a very amazing session. Thank you so much, Priscilla. Thank you, Dr. Nini. Thank you, Damaris. That has been quite an eye-opener, and I'm hoping that this won't stop here. I'm hoping that we will have more and more conversations around water, especially in our country, and in generally in Africa, so we can be able to make the changes that we need to make. And with that, I would like to say thank you once again. Thank you for everyone who attended. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your responses. I really appreciate. And have a lovely afternoon.